Hello and a very warm welcome to our other episode of Focus on This Week. This is your weekly program that brings you different current and dominating topics so as to influence positive change within Tanzania, in Africa and in the world at large. Leading the program, as always, I am your host, Caroline Maleo, and of course we'll be together from the beginning till the end of our today's program. On this episode, we'll discuss about the topic titled The Future of East Africa, Unity, Power and Regional Ambition. For decades, the idea of a united East Africa has carried both promise and pressure. A promise of a region without barriers, where goods, people and opportunities move freely, but has also carried pressure. The pressure because history has shown us just how difficult that unity can be to sustain. In 1967, leaders including the late Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere and Jomo Kenyatta laid the foundation for the first East African Community, which was a bold attempt to integrate economies and build a shared future. But in 1977, the dream collapsed. Not because the vision was weak, but because political differences proved stronger than the cooperation. But until it was for more than 2 decades, actually, East Africa stood divided. But until the year 2000, where the community was actually revived with a new sense of purpose. And since then, progress actually has been visible. With intra-regional trade, which has actually grown steadily, non-tariff barriers, which was once a major obstacle in the region, have also been reduced by more than half in the recent years. Major infrastructural projects from regional highways to lake transport systems are slowly reconnecting the economies. Today, the East African community represents a market of more than 300 million people, one of the fastest growing regional blocs on the continent. And yet, integration remains a work in progress, because unity is not built only in declarations, but it is tested in decisions. And that brings us to March 2026. In Arusha, at the 25th Summit of the East African Community Heads of State, where actually leaders from across the region gathered once again, not just to review the progress that has been made in the region, but also to confront the future. Leaders that attended, among them was Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, the President of Kenya, William Ruto, but also the newly appointed President of Uganda, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who actually are leaders that are shaping the next phase of the regional integration. The summit actually delivered a number of key outcomes, which actually included a new Secretary General from Tanzania, actually who is there to set and to steer the administrative engine of their community. But also there was also a new 5-year development strategy that actually aimed at accelerating economic transformation. But it was also a new financial formula, the one that actually seeks fairness, but also raises questions about the issues of commitment. At the same time, leadership of the bloc actually shifted, with President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni assuming the chairmanship of the community at a moment that many actually described to be a critical moment for the future of the community. Because beneath the progress, there are also underlying tensions. Questions about unequal distributions, questions about the pace of implementation, and questions about whether political leadership will match regional ambition. So on this episode, we actually go beyond the headlines. We examine what this summit truly means, not just to the government, but to everyday East Africans, but also is the region moving closer to the genuine integration, but also, you know, are the same challenges that once divided the continent still surfacing, or we actually coming up with new ways in order to tackle those challenges so that we can have a stronger East African community which is way better than how it was before? This is not just a conversation about policy, it is a conversation about the future of the region, its unity, its stability, and its place in the world. So to further discuss this topic, we are joined with two distinguished guests here at the studio. The first one is Dr. Kisembo Tendo, who is the Group CEO at Africa Mashariki Fest, all the way from Uganda. Welcome to Focus on This Week.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming. Dr. Kisembo, you're most welcome. This is the second time you're attending Focus on This Week.
Sure.
Welcome. We're also joined with Partenus Nyagira, who is a political analyst. Welcome to Focus on This Week again.
Thank you so much, Carol.
Let's kick off our discussion. Let's start with Dr. Tendo. Dr. Tendo, what do you think about the East African community? Do you think that the current East African community has actually delivered the vision that the founding fathers of African nations had in place? Has it really actually delivered the vision of unity?
Thank you so much, my sister. For starters, we need to interrogate the question of why do countries integrate. As you rightly stated in your introductory remarks, in the year 1967, when the three original EAC partner states had just attained their independence, Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda, history teaches us that Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere saw it fit to delay the independence celebrations of Tanzania so that Kenya and Uganda would also attain theirs and they could merge and celebrate it as East Africa. That in itself communicates volumes, because ideally we would have seen Tanzania quickly do the celebration. Now, countries integrate ideally for four main reasons. Reason number one is the market. You see, what forces regions to integrate? One is creation of a wider market within which to trade. Now, no country globally can operate in isolation. Tanzania needs Kenya. Kenya needs Uganda. We need each other. So whatever you produce in Tanzania and you cannot consume fully within Tanzania needs a market elsewhere. And that's when integration comes in. So apart from the wider market, we live in a world that has a lot of issues to do with security. So reason number two why these countries choose to integrate is an issue of strategic security. And once you don't integrate, then, and you know we have a challenge of issues of sovereignty. Now, for us in the Great Lakes region here, we have a challenge where you day in, day out, we see rebel groups emerging in some of the countries in the region. And if a rebel group X emerged in Uganda, for example, we had the Lord's Resistance Army operating and hiding in the eastern part of DRC. Now, when you hold on to sovereignty of DRC, Uganda cannot pursue the rebels who are hiding across the border because DRC is a sovereign state. So for the Uganda People's Defense Forces to be able to pursue the LRA who are hiding across the border, we need to integrate so that we can cede part of the powers and holding on to the sovereignty of these countries. Then number three, we also look at the issue of infrastructure connectivity. As you rightly stated in your introductory statement, we have since seen the developments happening. On the 8th of October 2014, at Speak Resort Munyonyo, we saw the heads of state of the then EAC partner states converge and launched the SGR project, the standard gauge railway. This was intended, the initial part was a construction that would see a railway line linking Mombasa to Nairobi, Naivasha, Malaba, through Kampala, all the way to the western part of Uganda and crossing into DRC and South Sudan. Now, that ambitious project has been actualized on the side of Kenya as we speak now, there is an operational SGR project from Mombasa to Nairobi, Nairobi to Naivasha, and Uganda has also started the process of construction from Malaba all the way to the western part.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tendo. We'll get back to you as you have explained the three parts, the market, the security, and the infrastructure, the actual reason for the integration. And you're explaining that it has really come into action as you're giving examples. Let me go to Niagara and then we'll get back to you. Niagara, what do you think? Do you really think that the integration, the East African integration, has actually delivered the vision and the dream that founding fathers of the African nations had?
In fact, we can't say there is a nation or an institution which can reach to its vision and its ends there, because human beings have this endless kind of nature that they pursue development till they die. So even nations just get the same quote. So the visions they are just to help us move in a sort of way, in a certain direction that is at least realized. And when we go back in history, nations have come together not just because of markets alone, but because we have a major common enemy we are fighting. And especially this part of Africa, we are fighting the external world. The external world has never been soft and easy to us. And you see pre-colonial society, how they were disrupted, distorted, our culture was torn apart and everything after during colonialism. Now, after colonialism, the aim was much to come back to where we were, come back as the African people, regain our heritage, and continue in the pursuit of human dignity. So coming together was signifying such bigger kind of a concept, such bigger kind of a vision. And the issues of market now come to be so crucial because we need now to sell among each other and the people we know better than others. And when you look at the world economy today, you look at the conflicts within the economy and the world, it is much concern that we need to look onto ourselves. And the attitude towards us is not a good attitude, because the attitude towards us is to take our resources, is to deny our dignity. At the very best is to take our forms of governance and live the way others want. So we want to protect that kind of heritage, but as well as to show the world that this part of the world has something to offer to humanity. So when we look at East African community, since 2000, when it was re-established, there are some issues, of course, some steps have been taken. For example, the Common ID system, which was introduced in 2010, I think, at least, though yes, some nations, as we have said, the challenges has been much of the sovereignty issue, and the national interests has been so much higher as compared to what we are fighting of. But at least there has been a laid ground. For example, Uganda, they can travel to Kenya by having an ID. Rwanda and such other countries, but it still needed to go beyond. And when you look at these nations, they have all established the ID system, of which is still needed to be integrated so that it can bring the same results. So that's number one. But when you look at the common market, yes, custom union, still we are moving, but not at the pace which we can say we have achieved already. But it is a continual, gradual process of which our leaders are still going on with it. And they don't want to get to the business of the past, of 1967 East African community and how it disintegrated in the 1970s. So they want us to go in slow, but so sure, so that when we come together, nothing can tear us apart. And actually this lesson can be taken from Tanzania with Zanzibar, Tanganyika with Zanzibar to form the United Republic of Tanzania. Such kind of a move.
Such kind of a move. Dr. Tendo, you wanted to add something?
To add something briefly. When you look at the treaty for the establishment of the East African community, there are 4 pillars. As he rightly stated, the Common Market Protocol, the Customs Union, the Monetary Union Protocol, and the Political Federation. Now, examining the progress so far made, 25 years ever since the community was revived in 2000. One, let's look at the cross-border movement of people, goods and services. ideally, on a larger scale, this has been achieved. Other challenges of non-tariff barriers notwithstanding, East Africans are free to roam the region. The only challenge we are still having is some partner states who haven't allowed the free movement of people using national IDs. You require a passport to come to the United Republic of Tanzania. You require a passport to go to the Republic of Burundi, something like that. But again, let's look at, of course, integration is a process. This is not something that you give a one shot and things are happening. And that's why we can ably say East Africa is one of the most progressive blocks, not only on the continent, but globally. Other factors notwithstanding. When you look at the issue of the one-stop border post, previously people used to spend a lot of time on borders when they are crossing. But right now, because of the introduction of the one-stop border post, you have a Ugandan immigration officer seated next to a Kenyan immigration officer. So you get your passport stamped here, you cross over to the next counter, your passport is stamped, and you proceed. That alone is an achievement. Then, of course, we talked about the infrastructure projects. The airlines we have in the region, Uganda Airlines was reactivated, was opened again. We have Kenya Airways, we have Air Tanzania, Rwanda Air. These regional airlines are also plying the routes in the region, and that also buys into cross-border movement of people, goods and services. I also wanted to say, there are naysayers out there who think integration is on paper. That's not right. We have quite a lot that has been achieved in our region, though I suppose that our leaders need to address three key issues: the protectionism and trust issues. Protectionism and the trust issues seem to be dragging the momentum of the integration. But on the whole, when you examine the spirit of our founding fathers and those who championed the revival of the community, we feel this is our future and it is the way to go. Yes.
Both of you explained, you know, that the integration is really, it's going, and there's a lot that has been done and a lot that is continuing to be done. But one might be wondering that if this integration is doing well, why there are still challenges, that when people are looking at this integration, there are still challenges, that when they look at countries, let's say the DR Congo, there are conflicts that are ongoing. People are wondering, is it that, you know, back then in the liberation era, you know, as you explained earlier on, Mwalimu Nyerere delayed the independence of Tanganyika so as to to make sure that other countries get the liberation first. And then they are wondering, why do we have conflicts within the countries? What is happening? Is it that we have forgotten the roots, or what is happening?
First of all, conflict is a part and parcel of human endeavor. There will be no time that humanity will have no conflicts. You will have no conflict when you go down into 6 feet. I mean, when you die. So nations on the lower level, even at the higher level, are made of people, and people on the daily basis have frictions. So unity will not just end conflicts, but it will make easier conflict to be managed. Because managing conflict requires resources, requires human capital, and requires a lot of things attached to that area. So what they see in DRC, the question wouldn't be that the East Africa community has failed, but it would be that the East African community is not much visible, speaking on how it could manage the conflict. We can see, for example, the Nairobi process. The East African Regional Force was chased in DRC. So people wonder that, now what is happening? Because they think East African community is like a monster standing somewhere there, or a superpower standing somewhere there, and looking who is fighting who, and so that comes with a stick. No, East African community, these are the bilateral treaties, these are the charter that nations should behave in a certain sort of way. Now, if nations don't behave in a certain sort of way, as agreed by the charter, then you don't expect that East African community will have something to do, because East African community means these nations. Now, if, for example, DRC Congo cannot settle its problems within its borders, you don't expect that there will be much more than that, because the other nations cannot superimpose, because we are not one nation. We are not in a federal state. That's why Honorable Kisembo here put it very well, that we get into a federation so that to see how we can manage ourselves much better. And when it comes to issues of conflict, it is easier to say, hey, gentlemen, look here, this is not how we go, because we speak one language. But currently, we don't speak one language. We are still in the process towards that, where national sovereignty and protectionism, as he has said, is much higher than the unit. Such kind of leaders like Mwalimu Nyerere, who said, no, I can at least be able to delay the independence of this country for the sake of the bigger East African community, East African unit, they are not much there. They are few. So we still, the remaining few, the Mzee, Museveni and the rest, still are not the people who can take this it's all alone. So that's what I think they should look at East African community at two layers. One, individual countries, but two, at the general community level. That those three pillars we have mentioned, the custom union, the common market, the monetary union, how are we faring with each other? And when conflict arises, what are the mechanisms which come in or are brought by these heads of state quickly and efficiently, at least to lower the effect of the conflict within the nations.
Dr. Tando, you wanted to add something?
Yes, please. The issue of DRC Congo as a member of the East African community is a very complex issue. Whereas some stakeholders believed that leaders were so ambitious to include South Sudan and DRC into the family before setting standards that needed to be achieved. We needed to, again, as I said earlier, interrogate the spirit of regional integration. When you look at Eastern Congo DRC's issue, let's take an example of what is happening in Eastern DRC. Uganda People's Defense Forces, under the direct command of President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, has tried its level best to try and pacify Eastern DRC Congo. You have brothers and sisters in Eastern DRC who are struggling, have been fighting ever since Congo got independence to date. Now, sometime back, President Museveni decided that the Uganda UPDF Engineering Brigade should begin constructing roads, access routes into DRC. Some people looked at that as a challenge, and he was bashed for spending Uganda's resources. Little did they know that we needed access into DRC, eastern part, for market. We have a lot of products in Uganda, from Tanzania, from Kenya, that need to find their way into Eastern DRC, which is a huge market, but there is no access, okay? And then number two, as we earlier stated, integration is a process. Even the peace we are talking about, Congo, Eastern DRC hasn't seen peace for quite some time, but efforts are in place. And one of the commendable steps is incorporating DRC into the EAC, because that alone gives us access. So the forces of Uganda and the East African Standby Force can ably now move in without DRC clinging on to sovereignty. But as my brother here put it, when the East African Standby Force was deployed in Eastern DRC, we saw that shortly issues of trust, suspicion set in. Have these people come to keep peace, or they have come to loot? These questions emerged. And shortly we saw President Felix chasing away the East African Standby Force, replacing them with another regional bloc force from SADC. Now that was an indictment on itself. But that notwithstanding, I am a strong believer that we are human beings, conflicts are bound to happen, but it's the spirit and the willingness to manage, because what integrates us, what brings us together is stronger and much more relevant than the petty issues of trust, suspicion, protectionism that continue to drag us.
Dr. Tendo, with what you explained, let me go to Niagara. Niagara, what do you think, you know, like there's a lot that has been done, as he explained, like incorporating the DR Congo into the integration, you know, so that a lot can actually happen. But what do you think, Niagara, are all the heads of state that are members of the East African community playing their role into the community effectively?
Yes, you know, their role is on two levels. You should know that they have a country and the land must protect. They have their own territory to protect. They are the sovereign state being actually identified internationally by United Nations that these are the states. So the thing we call East African community is just a side dish for these nations to see if they can come one. So that's the first level. They are doing their job in their own countries, and they are ensuring peace, and they are fighting on a daily basis to ensure that their people can have bread on table and they can have prosperous. That's number one. But when it comes to the heads of state summit, it can be seen from the council policies and the discussions, the quality of discussions they come out with. You have seen this time, they have spoken by 30th June, nations to have removed all the non-tariff barriers. Yeah. They have come up with a new formula for financing their community. And this can be seen that at least nations which benefit much from the, from the community itself, they need to contribute much higher than. So when you look at that, you see them doing what they can, because they have two roles which are very critical. Making sure that they fulfill their promises within their political local sphere, but at the same time with this bigger sphere of East Africa. So the East Africa becomes the secondary. And if the primary is not proper, then the secondary will not be proper. So that's why you see there is a gap between the secondary and the primary, because the primary one has a lot. There is internal conflict within these member states, of which their political stability has questions, and they needed to fight them. They needed to clear the questions within their borders. But at the same time, they have the bigger role at the secondary level to play. Now, for example, when we take example of Uganda, for example, they are in Congo in two steps or in two levels. One, under the agreement they had under the, they call it Operation Shuja, that's number one, which is cooperating with the government of the DRC to ensure that there is peace within the DRC by fighting the ADF and such other rebel groups. That's one account. But they are also in the Congo under EAC. So you can see they are already family. We are already family. That's why the idea of federation or integration is much, carries more weight, because we are, this landmass, as you see the East Africa, for example, Uganda, Rwanda, Kenya, Burundi, Tanzania, during the time of colonialism, it was just one landmass. These nations were not there defined as nations.
Demarcations were not there.
They were not there. Even Tanganyika was named by these guys. It was not there. A country which came after or born in, it was called United Republic of Tanzania. The union between Zanzibar and Tanganyika is when it brought Tanzania. So this is a new nation which has nothing to do with colonialism, has nothing to do with the divisions, as it is actually our own making from the East Africa.
Indeed.
And that's why it has been, I think, at the center of each and every advancement when we come to East Africa, Central Africa, Southern Sahara, and Africa at large.
Indeed. Let me go to Dr. Tendo. Let's talk about something else. Let's go back to the summit that took place this March 2026, the Summit of Heads of State of the East African Community. We understand that the chairmanship of the East African Community is not merely ceremonial. It is actually something that shapes the political tone of the community. With decades of leadership experience, we have seen that Yoweri Kaguta Museveni actually assumed the role of the chairmanship of the East African Community. Can you kindly tell us, do you think that Museveni assuming this role will actually bring the integration into a step forward?
Well, thank you. Indeed, as you rightly stated, the chairmanship of President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, which he assumed on the 7th of March, came in timely. For us who have kept following developments regarding the integration process, we had entered a very critical step, or a very critical point where some reporters and analysts called it an ICU state, an intensive care unit kind of state, where we needed political oxygen, leadership oxygen to resuscitate the integration. Indeed, I want to thank the heads of state of this African community for the bold reforms that happened in Arusha on the 7th of March, beginning with choosing President Museveni to be the chair, so that political guidance and direction at such a critical juncture can be exercised. Like I said, the 4 pillars of this African Community Federation or integration, we have the 4th pillar as a political federation. But in my view, and most of the stakeholders out there believe that the number 1, 2, and 3 pillars have faced a lot of challenges and have dragged, because pillar number 4 would have come pillar number 1. If we had a political federation as our first pillar in the integration agenda, then the customs union, the monetary union, and the common market protocol, these would ideally be realized earlier, because we would have clear political leadership which would give guidance to the process. Let's look at what transpired in the previous summit of last year. When we went to Arusha for summit, that time, based on the rotational arrangement, DRC Congo had to give us the new chair of summit in the names of President Felix Tshisekedi. Now, DRC Congo did not show up. And as you rightly know, issues of non-payment, non-compliance, not prioritizing the integration agenda were at play. And we saw that summit agreed that instead of giving a president who is not attending summit, he remained in Kinshasa, his colleagues are in Arusha, they agreed no, that was not possible. That's how we saw President Ruto of Kenya take on chairmanship. Now, a lot has been going on. Indeed, we had reached a point where most of the stakeholders had kind of lost focus and interest. That's why I want to thank the leadership for having seen that President Museveni championed the revival of the community. And
let me go to...
Just a second to conclude. The integration bit, the integration agenda that President Museveni sees communicates volumes. So right now, we need somebody who can whip, bang the table, call to order colleague heads of state, so that we cannot lose the vision and focus. So his chairmanship comes timely, but also in a special way, I also salute the leadership for having chosen the new Secretary General of the community in the names of Ambassador Patrick Mbondi. Because when you examine the roles of the Secretary General of the community and where we are right now, we needed a combination of 2 senior people, passionate about the integration, and then political direction and guidance can be given.
And do you think, with all that you explained, do you think that the new appointment of this chairman of the East African Community, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, will he meet the demands and the needs of the young generation, the Gen Zs? Because you explained what he will do. He's someone who can sit there and summit all the heads of state and, you know, move the integration forward. But what about the young generation who occupy the largest population of the East African community?
Well, the treaty for the establishment of EAC provides that it should be people-centered and private sector-led. Now, all the aspirations of these heads of state are geared towards bettering the livelihood of the wananchi in the region. Now, President being at a strategic level to offer guidance and leadership, the Secretariat or the community is structured in such a way that we have organs. And in my view, I think now that with the new financing and funding model and the empowerment that has been given to the Secretariat, if resources stream in, I believe all the organs will be operational. We have the Secretariat, we have the Council of Ministers, we have the East African Legislative Assembly, the courts. Now, all these, we once funded and supported to push their mandate or to follow through their mandate, then the issue of the young people. Of course, our concern as young people in the region, one is unemployment. That is number one. But when you address cross-border movement of people, goods and services, when you address the issue of non-tariff barriers, then indirectly you are addressing youth unemployment. We are seated here on screen, on set here. You are working with the TBC. Tomorrow, you may choose to cross from here to go to Nairobi or to Kampala to find a job on one of the media houses. Now, once we have operationalized fully cross-border movement of people, goods and services, and then infrastructure connectivity done with non-tariff barriers, young people who are into different Juakali sectors can cross and do all sorts of jobs. You see, no government globally can employ all the young people or the population they have. Government will only employ a certain percentage. But what is critical here is to have policies that will support entrepreneurs, more so young people, to be able to thrive in our community. Yes. Indeed.
The integration looks promising to the East Africans. Actually, let me go to Niagara. Niagara, can you kindly tell us what, I know you want to add something, but can you kindly tell us as well, what would the fully integration East African community look like in the future? How does the vision of a future East African integration look like?
Before I get into that question, of which can be seen from the Charter and the Vision 2050, EAC, it speaks about prosperity, removing barriers, making East African community competitive. That's how the future should look like. But how do we reach there? The question is a 100 times question. Now, I wanted to add some few things on the first two questions you asked. Let me begin with the question of the youth. When you look at the East African community structure, it has a cartel of like 5 to 6 organs. We start with the summit, where we have the heads of state. We go down to the Council of Ministers. We go down to the coordinating committee, sectoral committee, EAC registration assembly, and EAC justice, Court of Justice, and then Secretariat. Now, when you look at that structure itself, it contradicts the question of the youth. Because when you are in every party, political party, you find there is a structure for youth wing.
Yes.
But when you look at the AAC structure, nothing concerning with the youth. So from the policy level, they need actually to improve and amend on the charter to be able to accommodate and incorporate the youth. Because currently when you look at the East African community population is much younger as compared to the structure itself it is. So these people need to be brought on table, be guided. Because now, for example, Chinua Achebe said, a kid who washes hands in the public can eat with elders. Now, where do you get this kid in the public? On those tables. Bring them on table and guide them on how to do things. So they still have a challenge because these are the Gen Z, they are running the business. So political language is not proper for them. So the current leadership in East African community need to have a political language for the Gen Z.
Nyegera, I have a question.
Yes.
Does it mean that the integration has been there since its revival in 2000? It's been a long time. Do they not know that that should be integrated as well? The young people need their section there in the East African community.
Yes, they know, and there has been ambassadors, but it has not been taken with the seriousness as we see the Gen Z themselves. The Gen Z themselves today are too speedy. So we need a speedy kind of organs which operate. So it has been there. They have the ambassadors, but having a structure which speaks generally and specifically on youth, and saying, for example, when you have NRM Youth League or CCM, UVCCM, people are given the chair to speak. That now this is the time to hear from them. Which kind of programs do they have, and all that. So we still have a challenge on that. That's one part. Now, for President Museveni actually to carry the mandate, the question you asked about the EAC, I think has to do not less than 60 things. Number one, the question of security has to make sure that, of course, the military man, and that gives him an advantage of looking things in a very multi-dimensional kind of sphere, because we believe the military has a certain discipline of looking at things differently. So the question of security, when you look at the DRC, you look at Southern Sudan, Somalia, and you look at what is happening in Somalia. Currently we see there is one of the stronger nations there acknowledging Somaliland. So there is a serious crash of the giants, of the gigantic proportions there. That's number one. So he has to deal with that. That's number one. Number two, national interest, balancing the national interest. So a kind of a diplomatic language is needed to bring all these heads of state into one thinking, to be able to understand that actually we are lagging behind simply because of these national interests. Yeah. For example, when we said we should have one common ID system, if it was implemented across by then immediately, we shouldn't have this kind of questions on table. So balancing the national interest, but also gradual pace of integration. The gradual pace of integration is connected to the two above I mentioned, because nations have tested they still have legality and legitimacy in their own country, and they are taken and hold it dear. And such kind of a spirit that I can forego this for the bigger unit is a question of philosophy, the question of, we can say, the question of influence, the question of persuasion. So this EAC chair has to use all what he has garnered being in the leadership of EAC for that long time, to be able to influence and make what he always speaks of, the integration, to be fulfilled.
But I think, like I earlier said, to me, the 25th Ordinary Summit was a blessing, because I was there physically, I saw leaders committing practically to addressing the challenges that have been slowing the momentum of the integration. You know, in this region of ours, we have 8 partner states with different economies. And the framers of the treaty, by that time, the original 3, Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, they were much or less the same in terms of economic power. Kenya, Tanzania leading, but Uganda wasn't far. Yeah. Now, let's face it, most of the countries we have incorporated in the bigger family are net importers. Countries like Burundi, countries like South Sudan, countries like Congo, they have absolutely nothing to sell in the wider market called East Africa. And you are subjecting them, okay, to pay $7 million annually. Now, if Kenya pays 7 million, that's justified because in all the supermarkets across East Africa, we have Kenyan products, we have Tanzanian products, we have Ugandan products. Drive around this city of Dar es Salaam and identify 2 products coming from the Republic of Burundi, coming from the Republic of South Sudan. Nothing. So you can only give in based on what you are getting from the community. And because we have always acted with a lot of suspicion and caution, one would ask, why are we giving in our all? What are we benefiting? Because once we open up, it is Kenya taking the lion's share, it is the United Republic of Tanzania enjoying this, it is Uganda enjoying that. Then their national interests will now set in. Would rather slow down, let's be inward looking, as opposed to embracing the community. Now, but there are lessons. Let's look at the Pamoja bid. You know, Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania submitted a bid to host AFCON 2027.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, to me, that win communicated volumes. Mwalimu Nyerere is on record having advised us that nguvu ya wanyonge ni kuungana. Tusipoungana, hatutakuwa na sauti moja. Tusipoungana, tuna risk kwamba tunaweza tukatawaliwa tena. Now, what that means is that Tanzania wouldn't bid and win alone. Neither would Kenya or Uganda. Now, that alone should signal something, even among the young people out there, that you are better off calling yourself East African, as opposed to saying I'm Tanzanian, I'm a Kenyan, I'm a Ugandan. That alone does not help. Now, on the issue of the young people in the region, indeed, even if we integrated and got a political federation and all the pillars are operationalized, what remains ideal is that we need open borders and we need to embrace each other. Because I've always painted a picture of, let's call them 8 families. These are families in the neighborhood. Now, in family X, there is the husband who is exercising domestic violence on the wife, but you have no mandate to say anything because that is a sovereign or home or an independent home. Don't interfere with my domestic affairs. I'm battering my wife day in, day out. But once we agree that let's form a community, now this is what we are going to enjoy. We shall say we need security for our 8 families, so we each contribute something to ensure that we are secure. If it's a gated community, we work around it. We say the roads from family A to B are not good. I'm just painting a picture for a viewer out there of TBC to know the benefits of the integration. The small roads connecting these 8 families need to be worked on. We work towards that. Then we say, what else is our challenge? The other family has cows. They produce milk. They cannot take the whole milk they produce. They will sell the excess milk to these families. Then a family called Tanzania grows a lot of rice, a lot of cashew nuts. You cannot consume all these in Tanzania. Your cashew nuts, your rice will find market in the other family and the other. Then finally, we are saying our young people in these families have graduated, but they don't have jobs. What can we do? The other family has a supermarket. They need accountants. Young people have graduated from this family will get jobs in the other family. Now, if we can address the issue of protectionism, if we can address trust issues and give priority, let's, viewers out there and our leaders, let's examine and reflect on what could have forced Mwalimu Nyerere. You know, when you win, you want to celebrate. Tanzania gets independence, I repeat. Mwalimu, visionary as he was, says, wait a second. Celebrating as Tanzania is meaningless. We would rather celebrate as a region. That makes Mwalimu Julius Nyerere stand out. And we as disciples of the gospel that he preaches, or he preached of integration, believe that we either integrate or we perish.
Okay, I continue now. I completely agree too. Of course, I want to bring my brother here back to African setup before colonialism. How the society was structured. Of course, the youth, the young people, they had a section. They had a section. So this one, we can't just underrate it from a bigger picture that, for example, if we have a custom union, we make sure we have XYZ, the question of youth won't be there. It will remain there. Because we say a river which forgets its root, its source, dries up quickly. It has been like that. In our African setup, there is a section of youth. There is a section of young people. That's where they are molded on how to behave in a certain sort of way as the community wants, as members of a good family, and to keep the future of the society. So whether we see it fit now or not, something needed to be interrogated philosophically. We needed them back into the structure and be seen. Now, the two things remain, of which I was saying President Museveni as a new chair has to do, is the regional diplomacy. The language of diplomacy of engaging these heads of state should be very soft. It should be very sophisticated a little. Should be very sophisticated, because we have seen these nations within the East Africa, they have their own philosophy guiding them. And it looks like the philosophy from their local borders is much stronger than the philosophy of the integration.
Yeah, just a second. Just a second. We need now to look at priority. Yes. Okay? Because we have CCM as a ruling party in Tanzania. We have NRM as the political party in power in Uganda. Now, if we are to genuinely prioritize the integration as opposed to our national interests, you know, once you integrate, you cede some of the powers. Now, it goes back to protectionism. We have reached a point when, like I said, Mzee has to bang the table and call to order some of his colleagues because of his seniority, because of his experience. Actually, if the integration collapses today, God forbid, President Museveni will be affected more because this is, I would say, his brainchild, having learned from Julius Nyerere. This is a brainchild, and he has offered beyond what we can share on this national broadcaster to ensure that the community remains intact. Yes. Yeah,
actually, we are speaking the same language. Correct. Because this is what I want him to stand for. Because if he does not bang the chair, I didn't want to use the language, things will not go this direction. But now the last is about advancing a political federation, as I have said, requires a new energy, it requires a new tactic, it requires ancestral heritage understanding. And of course, Museveni follows at that level because he carries that ancestral heritage. But now, we can say this is his last card. President Museveni, if you are hearing me, this is your last card.
I
play it and play it nicely. And this actually, this is the joke. Carol is not leaving to go for any news media outside. He's here. Of course, it was an example. It was an example. He'll be here.
Now I'm being told that we are almost out of time, but I heard that you're contesting to become a member of parliament of the East African community. What do you bring to the table what is it that you actually bring to the table for 1 minute?
Thank you so much. Indeed, I am aspiring to be one of the 9 members of the East African Legislative Assembly representing the Republic of Uganda. There is a by-election that came up. 2 of our members went to Uganda, contested and won. So a by-election is coming up on the 15th of April. And I'm vying to take on one of those seats. Of course, mine is a passion-driven agenda. For the past 15 or so years, I've committed and dedicated myself promoting regional integration, engaging young people across the partner states from the regional 3 to now 8. The organization that I lead has opened chapters in all these partner states, letting young people know and is shining a spotlight on the low-hanging fruits which are associated with our region's integration. So I come in timely with experience, with passion, proven passion on matters of the integration and also regional networking. Where we've reached, the community needs lobbyists. The community right now needs people who are passionate about this journey, not leaders who are just placed there for political convenience. And my candidature offers that humble background of commitment, passion, and experience. So I trust and believe that my party, the ruling National Resistance Movement in Uganda, will find it fit to endorse me to join others in Arusha so that we can support the integration agenda going forward.
Thank you so much for that explanation. Yes. I've been told that we're completely out of time. TVC1 viewers, the program on air was focused on this week, and today we discussed about the future of East African integration. And here at the studio, we have been with Dr. Kisembo Tendo, who is the group CEO at Africa Mashariki Fest, but we've also been with Partners Niagira, who is a political analyst. And indeed, as you've heard, at the studio today, the future of East African community is bright, and much faith is on the new appointed leaders to further solve the challenges that exist in the integration, but also to strengthen the integration for the current and the future generation. Leading the program today, I was your host, Caroline Maleo. Until next time, bye-bye.